you can advance your skill set when you're debating on the affirmative side of the topic is bringing an understanding morality. And there's an awesome historical reference, a guy named Emmanuel Levinas. And what Levinas says is that ethics are a first philosophy. And so, when we're talking about affirmative cases, it's really helpful to understand the ability to have a framework, of a philosophical foundation for how you should be evaluating arguments. When we're discussing, in our discussion today about advanced tactics for the affirmative side, we're going to be discussing micropolitics along with critical affirmatives. First, let's discuss micropolitics. Micropolitics is kind of a complicated phrase or a word, but really not that complicated of a concept. So, very often it's very common for people in debate to imagine themselves as an institution, to utilize fiat and exercise power over the federal government or a state government or some sort of international body or something like that, right? These are very common examples within the debate. What micropolitics suggests is that it's possible for you to affirm the topic by simply identifying a micropolitical action, or usually it's understood as an individual action, a choice that any one of us would make in our lives. So if there's an example where the USFG, the federal government, should lower the speed limit on freeways because it's safer for people, it's just as topical, right? The resolution is supported just as much by saying that an institution ought to lower a particular speed limit, as well as a micro-political actor or an individual person, right? You could affirm that topic by lowering speed limits by equally having an institution do it or a single person do it. What's interesting about the micropolitics example, right, is that it really shifts some of the burdens that take place between affirmative and the negative team. Very often in that case, people are going to have to describe a disadvantage for you as an individual driving slower, as opposed to a political argument that Republicans or Democrats might not like this decision, right, if you were to do it through the federal government. When you're doing it at a micropolitical level, especially if there's a really coherent and a very simple solvency story, it really shifts, right, some of these expectations that either side should have. Another really common example might be that the USDA, right, the Department of Agriculture, for example, should have healthier food guidelines, right? That's a very good advocacy. Well, just as likely, right, or just as promising would be if we as micro-political actors or individuals decided to eat healthier. So when you're thinking about advancing your techniques on the affirmative side of the topic, think about what burdens you need to support or defend to be able to support the topic. Do you actually have to have an institution exercise a particular policy option, or can you do those suggestions, those advocacies, can you do those on an individual basis? Next, let's discuss the role of critical affirmatives. Again, critical affirmative sounds kind of fancy, but again, it's really not that complicated when you break it down. The only thing that a critical AF does differently, right, is that it prioritizes and it puts a great amount of focus on ethics or morality for how a debate should be evaluated. So this is very important for LD, for public forum, and for parliamentary debate. And I think that critical AFs actually get quite a lot of legs in a variety of debate communities because ethics and morality are very, very, very important. But for some reason, debate competitors don't anticipate these arguments as being important. So for example, on a critical affirmative, very often you'll hear teams argue AFs in terms of cost-benefit analysis, efficiency, dollars and cents, baking industry, helps the economy. All of those things are important. A critical affirmative might look at any of those advocacies and ask, what's the role of the economy? What's important about having stability? What's the role of human rights? These types of questions of morality and focusing your case on strengthening these questions of morality and figuring out how to establish frameworks for policy options and choices that we'd have to make out in the real world, but also understanding how to evaluate these choices, right, in terms of a criteria. So what a critical AF does is asks that morality and ethics be taken very seriously, and that both. It's not that only the affirmative side gets to argue morality or ethics, but that they're the first ones to do so. This is a powerful tool because if you're the one who establishes the moral or the ethical framework for the debate, it really solidifies and codifies your advocacy. Very generally speaking, you're going to be able to pick the super sort of strategic ground, the best ground to stand on and argue when you're running critical AFs. Critical AFs have a great application for Lincoln Douglas, for public forum, for parliamentary debate, but I think for probably all debate, all the different styles of debate. So let's return to Levinas's idea that ethics are a first philosophy, that it's a touchstone, right, to how we should be living our lives and the really important and challenging choices that we have to make on an everyday basis should be viewed through a lens of morality or through a lens of ethics. This is a beautiful kind of philosophical foundation to understand, I think, critical affirmatives, right? Advanced tactics on the AF. And examples of that would be for both micropolitics and for critical affirmatives. Micropolitics eliminates so many of the burdens that you're going to have to deal with on the affirmative side of the topic because you're simply asking the question, should I or should we as individuals make better choices for ourselves and for the world? It really shifts some of the burdens and disrupts many of the expectations that debate competitors on the NEG or on both sides of the topic really, but usually the NEG are going to have for that debate. Likewise, a very advanced and effective tactic on the AF is running critical affirmatives. My suggestion is that you are the first team in the debate to talk about not only why ethics and morality are important, but to establish the framework and to have the debate round flow through a criteria of morality and ethics that you get to shape. These are both very effective advanced tactics for the AF, and I think it's really important to recognize the brilliance of Levinas's that ethics, his concept that ethics are a first philosophy, that really what we should be doing is looking to morality and looking to questions of ethics before we answer any other questions.